Hey, welcome back to the third season Cooking Kitchen. Good Lord, it's been a while, but I know I've been saying that. Trying to get into the rhythm again after that surgery. Here we are on Championship Sunday Day, which is the two NFL divisions are playing the championship games, and we're enjoying a Greyhound. Greyhound's a really simple vodka and pink grapefruit juice drink. And it is very lovely, very simple. In honor of the games today and the games next week, what I decided to try and show you all is the idea of making your own cheese nips or Cheez-Its, depending where you live and how you make them. And it's a really simple process. And I'm going to try and break it down to three different steps. One is how you go from once the dough has been rested and cooled, and then you want to make the actual Cheez-Its. So I'm just going to take my parchment paper and I'm going to crumple it up so that it sits on the pan better. We're going to take our rolling pin, and this dough has been resting since yesterday. It needs to rest, I'll show you how to make it. It needs to rest for at least 45 minutes and up to 2 days. Now, I will show you what happens if you let it rest too long, because as I've been preparing to make this recipe, or dish, or snack, whatever you want to call it, I've made it several different times in different ways, and I've let the dough rest for different amounts of time. Just to give you a demonstration of that, here is an example, or examples of the last several batches I've made. And as you can see, you end up with ones that have been too long in the fridge, or sometimes too long in the oven, and then different levels of cookness. So it's a really forgiving recipe. Once you roll it out about as thin as you want to, I just sort of trim off the rugged bits so that you get some nice straight edges. And then those straight edges, this is just one of my cheap, not often used cooking knives. You just start making some cuts in the dough. And as you're making those cuts in the dough, you're creating the different size Cheez-Its you want. So I'm going to cut this like this, and then put this over here in the pan. Maybe what I'll do is try and move this pan over here. And because these are homemade, you want them to look homemade, I guess. I don't know. I do. Or if you want to make them like absolute perfect, please, you do you, your kitchen, your rules. And what's going to happen here is I'm just going to make one more set of cuts here, and then one more here. And as you can see, different size ones go differently. If you want to try and pick up a whole bunch at once, just use your knife edge, drop it over into the pan, and then you can get them all sorted out. This is normally done in a reflective, meditative moment when no one's around, because it is the stage where there's not a lot going on here that you need to pay attention to. Okay? And I'm going to stop after this one because that's enough. Then what you do, once you get into this, and then you would just finish off the rest of them. You take the back end of a bamboo skewer that you would use to make souvlaki's or shish kebabs or whatever, and just make a little poke in the center, plus or minus a bit, of each of the little wee dots. And you do that so that A, it looks like Cheez-Its, and B, just to release a little bit of steam, I guess, as they're cooking. And these get popped into a 350-degree oven for between 16 and 18 minutes. I say that between because it's going to depend on your oven, depend on all kinds of different things, but you just want to keep track of it as well, because sometimes they can get overcooked. And then just from a very high angle, a little bit of salt to make them that extra bit of saltiness. Okay? Now, how do you get them to this stage? Well, this recipe comes together really quickly. This is where we actually get to the recipe of it. Okay? So now I have this rather ancient, it was cheap when I bought it, so it is continuing to be cheap. Food processor. You're making a dough, so doughs come together quite quickly. We've got 200 grams of orange cheddar cheese here. By the way, you can use whatever cheese you want to. There's a little bit of leftover white cheddar and Bergeron cheese, which was a really mellow white cheese. Okay, so we're just going to toss that all in. Next to that, we add a little bit more. There we go. We're going to add a cup of flour. Okay, just your basic all-purpose flour. Okay, and get that all mixed in. To that, then we're going to add 1.5 teaspoons of cornstarch. And apparently everything is sticking to my bowls. I don't know why. This must be, it's like minus 3 million degrees outside in Winnipeg. And yet there's humidity in the house or something. Okay, we got that all straightened out. And then to that, we add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. 1/4 teaspoon of salt is basically 3 pinches. So we add 3 pinches of salt. And then into this, we add our food processor and we process this up for 30 seconds, 20 to 30 seconds. I'm going to move out of it while she continues to film it. So what you have here is just 20 to 30 seconds of mixing up of the dry ingredients. Close enough. Okay, to that, we're going to add 85 grams of butter. 85 grams of butter is a little bit more than a 1/4 cup of butter. And you want to add that crumbled up, so as it pulls out. So this was in the fridge. We pull it out. We try not to handle it too much because, like making a pie dough, you want your butter to be as cold as possible so that it brings together all of your elements of the dough. Okay? And again, this one is going to get blended for 20 to 30 seconds again. And what's going to happen is you're going to see a change in texture occur where it goes from mixing together to actually getting crumbly into little pebbles. And as it keeps going, it's going to eventually, you can start seeing the texture change a little bit after 10 seconds. And then you see seeing it come together, it's whirling. And you can see how the orange color starts coming up a bit. And you can start seeing, if you focus down here, how it's getting really pebbly. Okay? And so that now looks, I don't want to take this off because it gets frustrating, but it gets really pebbly. Okay? Now, to make, you go, but that's not dough. You're right. Good thing is we don't need that top, which is over here now. So to this, we add 2 tablespoons of ice cold water. And as we're doing this, we're going to pulse this. Okay, so we're going to put it in and we just keep pulsing this for about 10 to 20 times. And as we're doing this, you can see how our dough just totally comes together into a nice big block. And then pop this off. And if I had a bit more flour on the surface, there we go. A bit more flour on the surface, we can pull this out. And your dough is now really soft and squishy and like a Play-Doh-ish kind of consistency. And what we would do here is we would cut this in either halves, thirds, or quarters. I'm going to cut it in half. And then we would we would flour our surface and roll this out till it's about 1/4 of an inch or so, 2.5 millimeters or so thick. We would wrap it in paper, in plastic wrap, and put it in the fridge for at least 45 minutes. And after 45 minutes, it's ready to be rolled out again thin like this one was. Or you can leave it up to 2 days. Once you roll it out, you put it over here. Away we go. We take a look. We have 4 minutes on the stove. So I'm going to continue to cut these up a little bit. Apparently, I talked faster, or worked faster than I thought I would. And so we're just going to cut this again. And another section here. And then what I do is I start cutting off the rough edges, and I just put the rough edges in on the sides, and they just become another texture or another size Cheez-It to nibble on. So if we look over in here, we can see we have some weird edges. So far, all the ones I'm pulling out are like that. So we pulled the orange ones. There's a nice one. Okay. So all kinds of different things. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to put our knife in, and I just gently scoop up some of these guys, put them here. And it's amazing how long 4 minutes takes when you're waiting for it to go by versus when you're not expecting it to and you're just talking through a recipe. But here we are. Okay, so we'll just keep doing that. And the whole idea behind these is that they're really forgiving. Like at the end of the day, you basically have cheese, a little bit of flour, and butter. How excellent is that for a snack? These make great counter snacks. So because I've been practicing this recipe now for about, well, probably about 2 weeks, I've made this batch about 3 times now. And as a result, we just have counter snacks. So we just grab those Cheez-Its whenever we feel like it. Sort of like having a box of pretzels out all the time, which is not always a good idea, but it is tasty. Just saying. Okay, so let's just do this last piece here, and then we'll make another cut. And as you can see, this, if you're really OCD, I shouldn't say OCD. If you're really concerned about making everything look the same, then you could square off your dough balls. But I don't care that much. I'm more about the flavor and the taste and the yumminess of it, as opposed to the absolute magical presentation of it all. But you might be into the presentation at all, or maybe you're going to a Super Bowl party in a couple of weeks, and you really want to show people what you can do from your kitchen. So make a couple of these, and then just really make them all nice and square and all the same size, so that people don't necessarily realize that you've made them and brought them. Okay. So here we are. Now this was a half of the recipe I just made. I'll put the ingredient and recipe profile in the first comment. But you can see, so you can make a half recipe of this if you want, and it actually makes a nice couple of pans like we got going on here. Or it makes 4, because I've made 2 here. Okay, all right. I'm going to finish these off later, but for now, let's take a look at how they look. So again, 16 to 18 minutes. These have been in for 16 minutes. Okay, take a look. And again, because I made these yesterday, they are a little bit less orange. Okay? So if I were to do this other batch later this afternoon, they would be more orangey like this, as opposed to these are sort of a little bit more in the middle like that, with some of the small pieces being very dark like that. Here's the trick. Ready? Whether it's super orange and chewy almost, to a really well cooked and dark, fantastic. How can you go wrong? Cheese, a little bit of flour, a little bit of cornstarch, a little bit of salt, butter. Everything's good. Cheese nips. You have time today before the game starts, or this evening's game starts, or time to practice and get ready for Super Bowl. Bring this to your party. Your friends will love you. Cheers. Here's to 2026. May we continue to have a less, one more time. May we have a less interesting year going forward. First few weeks have been crazy. Cheers, folks. Thanks very much. Bye now.